to all of you wonderful adventurers, welcome back to another video. Here we're going to be talking about buffs you are going to want to have when grinding. This one's going to be a bit of a shorter guide, mainly because we're only covering the grinding buffs, nothing in particular like life skilling, different things like that, but those do have specific buffs that I probably will cover in a different video. Anyways, let's get on into it. First off, the greatest thing to have when using any buffs that you are going to want to continuously pop, let's say you have some elixir that has a 15-minute cooldown, but you don't want to hotbar it to pop it every 15 minutes, probably about 4 times or so before you're done with your grind, but you still want to have them. One thing you can do is you can get a Radiant Fairy. If you get a Radiant Fairy, then you can unlock the skill Continuous Care, which Continuous Care allows you to have a page of auto-use items. This allows you to select many buffs that you can run that your fairy will pop for you, such as elixirs, perfumes, scrolls, exp things, different things like that. I have a guide on fairies, it will be in the description. If you want to get your own, then follow that. It should tell you all the different things, though it is a bit longer, so use the timestamps for only the things you need. The second thing is you have your family inventory. Family inventory is very important because it allows you to store a lot of things you'll be using across characters without having to use maids or storage to try and transfer items from character to character. In here I include most of my buffs such as scrolls or foods. I contain my worker items and my pet foods. And then finally, let's get on with the buffs that you will actually be using. So first off, in most cases, you'll be grinding against monsters. You're going to want to use a simple Cron Meal for this, because it provides you with extra combat and skill EXP, casting and attack speed, movement speed, critical hit, HP, knowledge gain chance, weight, down attack damage, damage reductions, and most importantly, extra AP specifically against monsters and high amounts of it. If we take a look at my stats, these are the stats I have now, in which case you're going to want to take a look at the extra AP against monsters because that is what this meal adds on. And if we pop a simple Cron Meal, you will see it went up by 30 from 148 to 178. If you're grinding something like humans, let's say you're grinding Elvia Baragi's Den, or demi-humans, Sylvian monsters, and different things such as this, a simple Cron Meal might not help you as much as, let's say, something like an exquisite Cron Meal, which just gives base AP rather than monster AP. So, as I was recording this, I did notice something. So, if you pop a simple Cron Meal, like let's say we're going to do that right now, you can watch the extra AP against monsters, and you can see I'm at 103. When you pop it, I hit 133. Now, the simple Cron Meal has its own cooldown, but it doesn't affect other meals, only Cron Meals. So, I figured it would stack, and to test that, I used a Serendio Meal, and as you can see, my AP is 400. This provides 5 extra AP, and if we pop that, nothing happens. We still have the extra AP against monsters from the Cron Meal, but despite the fact that we use the food, and it is on cooldown, it does not actually provide a buff. In both my fairy and Gaifu guide, I briefly talked about the capability of using both a Cron Meal and other meals at the same time, but it appears that I was wrong. You cannot actually do that. So make sure that you are using a Cron Meal specifically and that it is the first one you pop. Because if it's not the first one you pop, then the other meal's stat effects will take over. For example, if you pop a Serendia Meal before popping the Cron Meal, it will use up the Cron Meal, but it will not give you the buffs of the Cron Meal, only the Serendia Meal. Now we have elixirs and droughts. For my elixirs, I prefer a Frenzy Drought of Corruption. The reason I prefer this is because it provides you with a ton of extra AP against monsters, accuracy, stamina, and a couple other things. Some people do not like it because it has an effect of all DP minus 15. Although, I don't notice it a lot of the time because Shy is mainly focused around attack speed, so for me it works better since it also provides me with recover 3 HP per hit. So I get a lot more hits the majority of classes get inside of this specific time frame. So for some classes, Frenzy Drought of Corruption would be better than other droughts, and I would recommend this one. Now, if you do try this one and it isn't working for you, then a Beast Drought is also really good for AP against monsters, and it also provides for combat EXP, skill EXP, weight, and some other things. There's also the Giant's Drought, which doesn't provide anything against monsters specifically, but rather all species, so this one would be better for stuff like human zones or demi-human zones, stuff like that. Then instead of using a Frenzy Drought of Corruption, you can also use just a regular Frenzy Drought. It is cheaper, but it doesn't provide you with as many things as the Frenzy Drought of Corruption, as well as has the same cooldown. So in total, I would recommend the Frenzy Drought of Corruption if you do want to run a Frenzy Drought. There are also the immortal versions of these droughts. That means that if you die, the droughts will not disappear. Because if you die while you're running them, whether it be to a player or to a monster, then it will stop the buff, and you will have to reapply it if you do plan on continuing the grind. Now we have Perfumes. This is more of an expensive thing, so if you're grinding zones that will give you a lot of money, or if you really need the extra boost of AP, then these are the things you're going to want to pop. They aren't something that would pop at every zone. Let's say you're grinding at trees, you're way over the AP limits. There isn't much you're gaining from popping this, and it's still costing you 14 million. It wouldn't be as good to pop this, but in zones like Underground Kaifens where you're making a lot of money and you might struggle a little bit, this would be a good thing to pop. There are several different perfumes, and one of the most used would be the Spirit Perfume Elixir, primarily because it gives you a ton of HP. This, along with the Perfume of Courage, which gives you a ton of AP, the Perfume of Swiftness, which I wouldn't recommend this one if you're grinding. This one is specifically for life skills, and the Calx Elixir. The Calx Elixir, the Perfume of Courage, and the Spirit Perfume Elixir are the three that I would recommend you run. Spirit Perfume Elixir is the cheapest out of all of them, although you can only run one at a time. Now finally, we have Scrolls. Scrolls are primarily for EXP boosts. They don't give much, and in life skill situations, stuff like a Secret Book of Flooring can also boost life skill masteries. But beyond that, it is primarily for EXPs that you will use these scrolls. So only pop them in zones where you know you're going to get a lot of EXP, such as Kaifens, whether it be upper or lower, they both give a decent amount, or gives more of course, or trees where you're getting a lot, and maybe some areas like that. Some of them do not stack on top of each other. For example, Blessed Message will stack on almost all buffs. Same with Mercenaries Experiences. Although one Mercenaries Experience, like let's say a 600%, will not stack with another Mercenaries Experience of a 200%, and a 300% scroll will not stack with a 530% scroll. Then there's the Extra Combat EXP scrolls, which doesn't stack with any Pearl or Loyalty items in general, meaning it will not stack with a 530% scroll, or some like that. So overall, only run the scrolls when you know you're in a spot where you're going to get a ton of EXP, because they are quite valuable. There, of course, is also other item drop rate buffs. For example, the item collection increase scrolls, both yellow and blue variants. There's Agris that you can run, called Agris Fever up on the top. There are also adventure logs you can boost Agris with. For example, you will start out with only 50,000 Agris, and by completing book 1, you will gain more Agris per day. You will gain an extra limit to how much Agris you have, and you will gain item drop amounts based off of this Agris. This can also be increased through book 2, and you can increase Agris that way. And at the bare minimum, you are at least going to want to run church buffs. If you talk to any priest in any major zone, for example in Grana, you can talk to Marandora here, you can see that they will offer you different buffs for different costs. The 300 minutes and the 120 minutes don't stack on top of each other, but each one of these buffs can stack. So you can get the attack buff, the protection buff, the experience buff, all combined, but you cannot combine two of the same, for example, attack and attack. Here's a list of every single zone you can get these buffs in, and all the NPCs that offer them. And then finally, there's the furniture buff. You can get this buff by buying any house and then placing a piece of furniture on the inside. In this case, I have a Master Special Stuffed Shadow Lion head. This will give me a massive AP buff, as you can see right here. Although these can be decently expensive, there are two that I would recommend. First off would be the Master Special Stuffed Shadow Lion head. This gives you a plus 15 AP for 3 hours, although it can be quite spendy, around 400 million coins. If you are a cheapskate or you are broke as fuck like I am right now because I've been buying a shit ton of Caphras, then I would recommend the Ancient Camel statue. There's not many on market, although there are usually not any pre-orders for it. It is very cheap at around 6 million coins, and it gives you a 9 AP buff for 1 hour. It also has 20 uses in it, unlike the Shadow Lion head, which only has 10 uses. So that'll be all for this video. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure you subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment. turn on notifications, look at other videos, share with friends, do whatever you're gonna do, and I'll see y'all later. Goodbye, everybody.